Hey, everybody. We got some breaking news. As you've probably seen, Israel has launched an attack on Iran. We mentioned this about 2 weeks ago. We had a special report about the International Atomic Energy Agency reports coming back from Iran on how much uranium they were enriching, saying they had enough uh, near weapons grade uranium for 9 bombs and would maybe take 2 or 3 weeks, something like that, before they had nuclear bombs. And we were saying that that was probably the most bullish thing. It was more bullish than the bearish things that had come out, at least in that week. During that same time period, we had OPEC coming out with an increase of 411,000 barrels per day. But again, that's what the market was expecting. So we thought this Iranian stuff was way more bullish than sort of anything else. And now, 2 weeks later, we've got this attack. So just kind of wanted to bring you up to speed real quick on a couple things. This is still ongoing. It looks like right now it's about 10:40, 10:45 or so on June the 12th in Texas. And this seems like we're on the third wave now of the Israeli attacks on Iran. Hey, my name is Aaron. I've got 30 years of experience in oil trading and analytics. I'm with the Oil Balance, and I'm here to elevate your understanding of the oil market. So let's dig into it really quickly. As I mentioned, we had a report about 2 weeks ago, which I will link to. You'll see it up here somewhere above my head. But what we did is is the right button. We came up with a couple different scenarios. It seems like the scenario 3 is what the market uh, is what is actually happening. So our third scenario here was Israel taking a large role on an attack that would probably seem excessive, at least from an Iranian perspective, would seem excessive. From pictures we've seen so far and sort of what we've seen discussed, it looks like there was civilians hit. It looks like Israel hit some tall buildings, some apartment buildings in Tehran at least. There's already reports of women and children being killed or injured. So, it wasn't strictly military targets that Israel was going after. And I think that is probably enough in and of itself to lead Iran to some sort of reaction, repercussions or something for Israel. Uh, Mr. Netanyahu himself has already told the people of Israel to sort of go to their safe place and don't come out until the authorities say it's safe to come out. So it certainly seems that Israel is already anticipating an attack. And then I just saw a headline here a few minutes ago where the Iranian leaders were again, saying the nation of Israel needs to get ready for a brutal attack. So something we mentioned 2 weeks ago is, of course, that this could pull, some sort of an attack on Iran like this could obviously spill into a larger regional war. We're a little bit worried about Turkey. They have the largest standing army in the Middle East. If Turkey were to take sides on this, it seems like they'd probably go with Iran at this point, and that could shift the balance of power, at least from a military standpoint, quite a bit. You've also got other large countries that are friendly to Iran, that being Russia and China. So again, we need to sort of look for what sort of reactions or anything that those two countries might come out and say in regards to these attacks and anything that they might do. The Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, has already come out and tried to distance America from these attacks. So that being said, I think there's probably, um, I don't think it would be too hard for the Iranians to, say that the U.S. was culpable in one way or another for these attacks and maybe turn their ire towards the U.S. For maybe a couple of reasons. One is the potential that we provided weapons for this attack, and then the second is, the thought of if Trump is such a strong leader, how come he couldn't do more to keep Israel from attacking? So I don't know if that's a fair comment or not, but I think that is definitely fodder on the Iranian side of things for escalating to attacking U.S. targets. Now, I'm not saying that Iran could actually attack the U.S. mainland, but there are, of course, army bases throughout the Middle East. President Trump has already recalled in the ambassadors, or at least the non-essential staff from the embassies of the U.S. in the Middle East. Hopefully, called them all back, and they all got out of the region in time. Hopefully, again, this is sort of an ongoing thing. So I want to show you the crude charts here real quick. If you haven't seen those already, if I can get my cursor back, there we go. So here's the daily crude chart. The way it works is the market reopens at 5 o'clock Central Time, but those trades after 5 p.m. Central Time are counted for the next day. So that's why you're seeing this already as Friday the 13th, even though I'm recording this on June the 12th. So the market right now is up almost $6. Earlier we got up to 77.62, which would be a full Fibonacci retracement. As we talked about last week, I can show you that here real quick. So here's that full retracement level. We just barely crossed that tonight with the reaction to all the stuff going on. So from that perspective, that maybe puts the bulls in a very hard place, and maybe they should be taking some profits here if they were trading just off of technicals. In terms of volume, that's what these stacks are at the bottom. Volume's actually really good. So for only being open for 5, almost 6 hours now, that's a lot of volume going through the market. So again, there's a lot of oomph behind this trade. This isn't just one or two contracts that is making the the market shoot up. This is a lot of volume going through. The other thing I want to show you real quick is if we look at the front spread, because this is something we talked about on last week's presentation as well. So yesterday we settled at 140. Sorry, let me change this back to a daily chart. There we go. Yesterday we settled at 140 on that front spread for TI. Today we briefly got up to $3. Right now we're at $2. But again, I want to remind you, when Russia went into Ukraine in the spring of 2022, the market traded in a similar way. Things were kind of going parabolic, especially on the crude spreads. I think there's a strong seasonal also for the summer spreads to trade in a parabolic type fashion anyway, just when things, from a geopolitical standpoint are somewhat normal. So you add something like this on there with all the uncertainty going on about, potentially a large war in the Middle East. And yeah, you can get these spreads going parabolic, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with inventories at Cushing. So again, I'll put a link to that report from last week so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But I think we could be back in that sort of formation. Of course, it depends. We're back in that mindset. It just sort of depends on what Iran's reaction is. The other thing maybe I should bring up as well is that you're going to have the proxies for Iran also up in arms, I would imagine. So the Houthi and Hezbollah maybe could be going after, obviously they're going to be going after Israeli targets if they can find them, when they have the opportunity. But maybe they can go after American targets as well. Again, as I said before, thinking that the U.S. provided arms for this attack or whatnot. So that's another thing we need to really keep an eye on. Not just Iran, but Iranian proxies around the world. The other thing I wanted to talk about too, really quick, is we're somewhat insulated, as just from a U.S. perspective, from an oil perspective, we're somewhat insulated from any conflicts in the Middle East. And what I mean by that is, if you look at these preliminary imports from the weekly data, you can see that Canada is far and away our largest supplier of crude imports. After that, you have Mexico. Saudi Arabia is further down the list. You can see there's some volatility there. Iraq is again further down the list. Brazil can get up to some pretty good volumes. What I'm a little bit concerned about, or what's in the back of my mind, maybe because maybe just being older, whatever, but the Arab oil embargo of 1973, when again Israel was involved in a war in the Middle East, and because the U.S. backed it, or at least was thought to be backing Israel, the Arab states decided not to send crude oil to the U.S. That was a big deal in 1973. That's not such a big deal right now. Obviously, we'd be hurting 600,000 barrels per day of Saudi Arabian oil if that were to be, if this were to all go to zero. Again, that would influence prices a little bit, but nothing like it would have done 50 years ago. When it was more around this 3-4 million barrels per day. So, uh, so that's shifted quite a bit. So we're a little bit more protected an from an oil perspective, and that's again what this channel is about. So that's where we're coming from on this. But that doesn't mean that the flat price markets won't react, because again, it just increased all the uncertainty about everything going on, especially things going on within the country too, with the race, or sorry, the anti-ice riots going on in LA and other parts of the country. Whatever's going to happen on June 14th in terms of protests, definitely seems to be a lot of uncertainty going on. And if you're trading crude, you would probably want to go into the weekend long and not short. So we could see a lot of short covering. And again, I think if you were long from the bottom of these moves, let me change this back to WTI. So if you were, long from a couple of weeks ago, I would imagine you'd be trying to take profits here and just kind of move on. Maybe stick with 25% of your original position or something like that. But you'd be taking a lot of profits at this point, because the market's handed you some good money here in the last, in this last week, and then today, obviously. The market's just gone crazy. So wanted to get that out to you real quick. If there's any more information, we'll come out with something else tomorrow morning. But again, just wanted to kind of let you guys see what was going on real quick on the reaction, at least from the oil markets, to this attack of Israel on Iran. So again, please like and subscribe to this video, to this channel, and I'll have links for those other videos. All right. And so we'll talk to you soon. Bye.